Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chandra Vallabha Srivardhani Gopi Chandra Vallabha Srivardhani Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chandra Bhavava Srivardhari Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading today from the Srimad-bhagavatam, 8th Canto, chapter 24, text number 51. The chapter is called Matsya, the Lord's Fish Incarnation. So we'll chant the Sanskrit for verse 51. Oh. It's not plugged in. Jano janasya nishate sating dating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha Tvavyayang jnanam amogam anshasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapradyeta durat yayang tamaha Tvavyayang jnanam amogam anjasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam Jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapradyeta durat yayang tamaha Svanghavyayang jnanam amogam anjasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha Svanghavyayang jnanam amogam anjasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha Svanghavyayang jnanam amogam anjasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha Svanghavyayang jnanam amogam anjasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha Svanghavyayang jnanam amogam anjasa prapadyate yena jano nijang padam jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha jano janasya nishate sating gating yaya prapadyeta durat yayang tamaha Puntavyayam jnanam amogam anjasa Sapajate yena jano nijan padam. Word for word synonyms. Janaha, a person who is not a bona fide guru, an ordinary person. Janasha, of an ordinary person who does not know the goal of life. Adishate, instructs. Asatim, impermanent material. Katim, the goal of life. Yaya, by such knowledge. Apadyeta, he surrenders. Duratyayam, insurmountable. Tamaha, to ignorance. Tvam, your lordship. To, but. Avyayam, indestructible. Jnanam, knowledge. Amogam, without material contamination. Anjasa, very soon. Prapadyate, achieves. Yena, by such knowledge. Janaha, a person. Nijam, his own. Padam, original position. Translation. A materialistic so-called, this is King Satyavrat speaking, a materialistic so-called guru instructs his materialistic disciples about economic development and sense gratification. And because of such instructions, the foolish disciples continue in the material existence of ignorance. But your lordship gives knowledge that is eternal, and the intelligent person receiving such knowledge is quickly situated in his original constitutional position. Srila Prabhupada's purport. So-called gurus instruct their disciples for the sake of material profit. Some gurus advise that one meditate in such a way as will increase in regard to keeping his body fit for sense gratification. Another guru advises that sex is the ultimate goal of life, and that one should therefore engage in sex to the best of his ability. These are the instructions of foolish gurus. In other words, because of the instructions of a foolish guru, one remains perpetually in material existence and suffers its tribulations. But if one is intelligent enough to take instruction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as enunciated in Bhagavad Gita, or the Sankhya philosophy of Kapila Dev, one very soon attains liberation and be situated in his original position of spiritual life. The words Nijang Padam are significant. The living entity, being part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has the birthright to a position in Vaikuntha Loka, or the spiritual world, where there is no anxiety. Therefore, one should follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Chaktva Dehang Punar Janma Naiti Mam Iti Sorjuna. After giving up one's body, one will return home back to Godhead. The Lord lives in the spiritual world and in his original personality, and a devotee who follows the instructions of the Lord approaches him, Mam A.T., as a spiritual person, such a devotee returns to the personality of Godhead and plays and dances with him. That is the ultimate goal of life. Om Jnana Timiram Vishya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So King Satyavrata is continuing his prayers and glorification, prayers of and glorification to Lord Vishnu, or Lord Matsya. And he's very much appreciating in his prayers how the Lord himself is acting as his spiritual master. And he understands, King Satyavrata understands clearly that that the Lord is the perfect spiritual master. And that he is not like not like materialistic so-called gurus, materialistic so-called gurus. Because he says a so-called guru teaches the disciple material things, materialistic things. Actually, we read in 7th Canto Srimad-bhagavatam about Prahlad Maharaj and about his guru, his school teachers, people who gurus. His teachers were, Sanda and Amarta, his two teachers. And they would and they were teaching the students all materialistic things. They were definitely not teaching their students that you should worship Lord Vishnu. They're teaching how to develop economic to increase economic development, sense gratification. So the school is basically a school, a demoniac school, because they're teaching materialistic things only, not teaching about the goal of life. And that, for the most part, is what schools are today too. They're teaching mostly material things, and without teaching the real essence of spiritual life. Do we have a Shri Upanishad here? Shri Upanishad? There's a very nice verse. I like this. If it's here. Okay. Anyway, the verse, I think it's mantra 9. I don't recall the Sanskrit right off, but basically it describes the verse says that more dangerous than being in ignorance is the cultivation of so-called knowledge. I think it's verse 9. Oh, the essence of it is that better than it says that mode of ignorance is bad, but the worse than that is the culture of so-called education, or so-called knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada explains in that purport how that verse is very much applies to in our present society is very much applies to our situation in modern society. Because education is taught very big emphasis on material education. And specifically, it's a very big emphasis on teaching material education with the exclusion of teaching the goal of life and spiritual education. If the modern schools, unless it's a Hare Krishna school, modern schools teach all materialistic topics, material topics. And they don't teach about the actual ultimate, real goal of life, the spiritual goal of life. And if you ask someone, do you have good education? They'll probably say, they could say, oh yeah, I got my bachelor's degree, I got my PhD, I got 2 PhDs. I'm a very intelligent person. But that kind of education, Jewish Upanishad describes, is actually very dangerous. And it's very dangerous because people are not being taught the real goal of the human form of life is to become Krishna conscious. And what they are taught is all information to help one become more and more materialistic, because there's no other information, knowledge, how to engage to become, what the real goal of life is. So in that sense, the teachers, the gurus, so to speak, in modern society, in the schools, they're teaching they're called students there, but here they describe disciples. But they're teaching the materialism without spiritualism to balance it. So of course, it's also stated that one needs to cultivate transcendental knowledge and nescience side by side. Knowledge and nescience. Nescience means ignorance. But basically, nescience actually means transcendental knowledge means all those activities that are favorable for helping one become Krishna conscious, and all other activities that are not favorable for becoming Krishna conscious, that's called nescience. So if one is cultivating transcendental knowledge, he's developing the consciousness, Krishna consciousness. He's developing that. But on the other side, we have material bodies. We've got so if one has a material body, there are certain material things that we have to do to maintain the body and function within the material world. So the verse says that one should learn to cultivate transcendental knowledge and nescience side by side. Just like someone might, if you know some basic mathematics, arithmetic, or mathematics, it's kind of necessary for living in the material world. So that's not a bad thing, but you have to simultaneously be learning the goal of human form of life and how to utilize the material things in Krishna service. Otherwise, like Srila Prabhupada says in the verse here, in the purport here, a materialistic guru may teach his disciple to develop. The materialistic guru will say, you must meditate. But your meditation should be on how to make your intelligence very strong to increase your sense gratification. This is your meditation. And another, Srila Prabhupada also says like another kind of guru, may say that sex is the highest goal of life. The perfection of life is sex, and so therefore you should meditate on how to make great endeavor to increase your sexual activity more and more and more. That is the perfection of life. So, but if some so-called guru is teaching disciples that, he is misleading them, and the disciple is also very foolish to accept such a personality as a guide. But Srila Prabhupada points out that a real guru, an actual guru means representative of Krishna. Here, King Satyavrata is seeing and accepting the Supreme Lord himself directly as his guru. But if someone is a real guru, representative of the Supreme Lord, then the rest of the population should accept such gurus as their guide. And a real guru will teach the disciples that our eternal constitutional position is as a servant of God. And such a guru will say, do not follow the principles of sense gratification. A real guru will teach that to not specifically do not engage in sinful activities or just materialistic activities. And by that proper teaching, and the disciple, by following him, will achieve the highest goal in life of going back home, back to the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada also mentions here that by understanding the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, which leads to the point of devotional service, and understanding the teachings of the Sankhya philosophy by Lord Kapila Dev will lead also to devotional service. So the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is give up all varieties of religion, which means demigod worship and so on. Give up all that and just surrender to me, engage in my devotional service. And Sankhya philosophy ultimately teaches the same point. In Sankhya, in the Lord Kapila Dev Sankhya philosophy, there are 26 elements. And there's just 26 elements. I can name them all, but the 5 senses, the 5 working senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, like that. I don't recall all of them right off, but there are 24 of them that have to do with the material body. So he analyzes all of these in his philosophy. And there are 2 other elements and 2 other qualities, 2 other elements of this 26. One is called is the soul, and the other is the super soul. And the relationship between the soul and the super soul is the relationship actually is proper relationship, a professional relationship is devotional service. So Lord Kapila Dev appeared ages ago, and his philosophy was perfect in that way. And then later, I think about 5,000 years ago or thereabout, there was a imposter Kapila Dev, imposter Kapila.
родился другой хотел делать, который, в общем, неправильно делал то, что ты сам.
And that impostor Kapila Dev, he also taught us Sankhya philosophy.
Он тоже учил философии сам.
But his Sankhya philosophy had only 24 elements.
Но его философия санки имела только 24 элемента.
His 24 elements were the same first 24 that the original Kapila Dev analyzed.
И он также анализировал вот эти 24 элемента, те же самые элементы, которые изначально Господь, истинный Господь предполагал.
But he did not accept the soul, and he did not accept the super soul. There's no soul and there's no super soul.
Но он абсолютно не принимал душу и не исследовал.
So naturally, the conclusion of such philosophy is just materialistic philosophy, because there's no God, and there's no living entity, and there's no devotional service.
Его заключение, пока в действительности была материалистичная философия, что, конечно, в итоге не существует Бога, не существует души и нет отношений.
The Bhagavad Gita states that the results of practicing Sankhya, the original Sankhya, and the results of devotional service, they are the same.
Бхагавад-гита утверждает, что результаты преданного служения и результаты исследования истинной философии санки это одинаково.
And of course, Srila Prabhupada is a perfect acharya and deliverer of the Lord's proper, real philosophy, which leads us to devotional service. And if we can follow, and if we can teach also this philosophy that Srila Prabhupada gave us, then we become Krishna conscious, and we can help others become Krishna conscious. And as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told Srila Prabhupada, you go out and you preach, you teach this philosophy to others, it'll be good for you, and it'll be good for those who are hearing from you. And on the other hand, if someone is a materialistic so-called guru, they'll be giving bad information. And of course, the results for both the disciple and the results for the guru are bad. The so-called guru. Because if such a so-called guru is misleading their disciples or their students, then the students become engaged in sinful life. And if the so-called guru is teaching like that, then they are also becoming entangled in sinful life.
Поскольку он продолжает двигаться в таком направлении, то он вовлекает духовную.
That's why it is said that one should not become a spiritual master, a father, a mother, basically a leader of any kind that has dependents, unless one can teach their followers to become teach their followers how to go back home, back to Godhead.
Именно поэтому у нас говорится, что человек не должен стать становиться гуру, учителем, там осуществляется отцом, различные осуществляют лидерские роли, и он не должен становиться этим, если он не обучает тому, как повернуться в духовный мир.
And if such a materialistic leader is misleading their disciples or their students or their followers, they're misleading them and giving wrong knowledge. If they are, then the disciple becomes engaged in sinful activities based on that instruction, then the guru is also getting reaction from sinful reactions himself. They're misleading this disciple.
Вот эти вот так называемые гуру, которые идут в ложном направлении учеников, соответственно, эти ученики, они вовлекаются в материальную жизнь, и этот гуру также получает духовную реакцию на себя.
So therefore, if a materialistic person is teaching someone else to be materialistic, and their dependent is becoming sinful, they can get up to 1/6 of the reaction themselves. 1/6, one over 6. Yes. 1/6. You can state it like that in Srimad-bhagavatam. Of who they are misleading. Who they are misleading. So someone is materialistic guru teaching their disciple to become sinful life. Then the disciple, of course, is getting reaction because they're engaged in sinful life. But the teacher who guided them like that is also getting a portion of that from each disciple who they are misleading. And the same thing holds true if someone is the governor or the people in public office. If they are actually directly misleading people, then they also are getting reaction. If they are misleading them, I will not try to judge how they are doing it. The administrative heads of the government, if they are misleading people into sinful life, then they also are getting reaction. Are there any questions?
Yes,
Okay? Is that a question? This is this microphone's for, so we can hear. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Anyways, wait. I'm not understanding.
Nobody understands.
Oh, okay. So we won't keep the class here at the moment. We end here for today, and tomorrow also we'll continue with Srimad-bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki